Hello and welcome back to Grapple Theory. Thanks so much once again for joining us. I am your host, Jamie Walker, and I'll be joined on today's show by a very special guest. He's a man who's done not one, but two combat sports in his career, wrestling, of course, being one of them. We're going to be talking to him first about his boxing career, which saw him go 12-1. Impressive run, I must say, before transitioning into wrestling, hanging up his boxing gloves and getting into the ring with a more sports entertainment aspect of combat sport. We're going to be talking about all that and much more. I'm joined on today's show by RP Davies. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to be talking to you about your boxing career in a little bit, but first, this is our final interview of 2021. So let's just look back on the year. How has 2021 been for you?
It's been a funny year, hasn't it, really, because everything kind of was shut down for half of it, and then we started to come back. Summertime sort of stuff. And it's been really weird. I think it's been a weird 18 months in general, like in life. But in terms of wrestling, since the return, I keep saying it, things have really took off, And, I've got to wrestle at some really great promotions, and I've got to get myself about a little bit. And I think my name has kind of taken off a little bit locally, but certainly in the northwest of England. So I can't complain with the kind of the exposure I've had since I've come back.
And I saw somewhere you said in previous interviews that you were a bit concerned that the pandemic and everything would sort of halt that momentum that you were getting prior to COVID. So it must have been nice coming back and seeing, although I guess it's a slow build again, that momentum really take off again rather than sort of stall.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I say, I was just getting started before. I've been at it, just under a year. Where on live shows anyway, just under a year when COVID hit, and it was just starting to, like you say, it was just starting to take off, and then COVID hit, and I just thought to myself, it's not really. This is no good, really, because in terms of training and everything, it's going to knock all that out of me. I'm not going to get to train as regularly anymore and whatnot. And then, of course, with things like wrestling, you need momentum on your side, don't you? And I knew that had cut my legs off a little bit. But yeah, I've got to say, it's been amazing. Like, social media is very important to it. I realise that social media is really important, and I tried to stay active on that during the lockdown to try and keep people kind of invested in the fact that I'm coming back, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to try and do bigger and better things if I can. And I've been very lucky enough to do them, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, it's like you mentioned yourself, especially in that Northwest scene, you seem to be on loads of posters, you're at loads of shows, which is fantastic. And I mean, that whole Northwest scene at the minute is really thriving. It must be great to be a part of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's absolutely boomed since we came back, and obviously we've had the speaking out movement, which I'll be dead honest with you, being new to the business when I got in, I was completely unaware of, and that was quite eye opening to myself, just to kind of read some of the stories there and whatnot. But rather than dwell on that, I think one of the positives that's come out of that is since the return, it's kind of without, sorry to swear, but kind of rooted out the shit a little bit, and the darker sides of British wrestling, and what it's left is hopefully a group of people who want to do the right thing and do wrestling for the right reasons, and entertain the fans and the kids and everybody, really. So hopefully, although it's been a really negative experience for I know a lot of people, hopefully it can turn into a positive long term.
Yeah, for sure. As someone who is, like you say, relatively new to the business or was pre-COVID, have you noticed, post speaking out, that sort of change in locker rooms you've been in, any sort of change in dynamic or feel or anything?
I'll be honest with you, no. And the only reason being is because I worked at Grand Pro Wrestling before that, and everybody was genuinely lovely, and they were just very nice to me. I've worked in another couple of companies. I worked in In-Out Wrestling. I worked at Pinfall. Again, I can't say anything bad. They were all very, very nice people, well run, and the interactions I had with people were all very good, and so I don't know whether that's because of my background, obviously within boxing, and people are nice for that reason. I don't know, but all I will say is, before speaking out, if I would have seen anything of this, like anything like this backstage, I know I would have said something. I know I would have said something, because I'm not for that. Wrestling to me is a bit of fun, and I love it, and it gets me to train, and it gives me a healthy lifestyle and all that sort of stuff again, and I actually enjoy, really really enjoy entertaining fans, but at the same time, it's not meant to. Well, I don't think it's not meant to be this, like, shady, dark, sort of place. We're meant to be, delivering fun, and that's how I kind of see it in my head. And so, yeah, like I say, since I've come back, all the shows I've been on have been fantastic. Great atmosphere. Everyone seems to be up for wrestling, and I think that's what's important,
Yeah, for sure. And going back to yourself, sort of, I guess when COVID hit, as someone who, again, like you say, only been in the business about a year, was that not just momentum wise, but like you said, in terms of training and stuff, was it frustrating to sort of just be getting that momentum, having only been in the business a year, and then for it all to come to an end? Were you maybe concerned that, like, oh, what if I, lose all this stuff that I've worked for?
100%, because obviously I got into this late. I got into it. I was about 31 because I'd had a career in boxing up until I'd been boxing for 10 years before that, and I got into it, and I've said it from the offset. I mean, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done, professional wrestling. The training and the sort of the dedication you need to put into it is off the charts, and I tip my hat to the men and women who do it. It's fantastic. How dedicated they are, and how good they are at this. But like I say, I put a lot of effort into it, and I really tried. I took it very serious, and I took it as serious as I did as a boxer, and I really tried to catch up as quick as I can. And then this happened, and what we thought might be a couple of weeks became, as we know, 18 months. And I would be lying to you. If I did not think during that 18 months, maybe I'll walk away now, because I had a good little year. I had a great first year in it, and it was brilliant. And we did perform in front of some sellout crowds, and I just thought maybe I peaked there, maybe that's as good as it's going to get, and with the time delay and the lack of training and that, is that going to impact me? But as soon as the availability to train came back onto the table, I have dedicated myself to it immediately. I've got to every training class I can possibly get to. I've travelled to Manchester. I travel anywhere I can. I've travelled to Barrow. I've travelled all over the place to try and catch up, because I do take this very seriously. It's fun for me and it's a hobby to me, but I also realise the dangers that lie within it, and I also realise the talent that's on display in all of, like you say, especially Northwest, but right across Britain, that are on these shows. And in my head, I don't like being second. I've never liked being second. That's a mentality thing, and so I take it as serious as I can to be as good as I possibly can at this stage,
Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk about your boxing career as well, because you had a really good professional career. Obviously, you ended sort of, I guess, slightly early from what I've seen about you and what people have said about you as well. And so, I mean, I guess the first question would be, talk to us about sort of why you retired, because you were 12-1 when you retired, 13-1?
12-1. I had 23 fights in total. I had 9 unlicensed fights, and I won all of them. I was undefeated in the unlicensed scene, and I won the British title twice there. And then I turned professional, and I had 13 pro fights. I won 12 of them. I lost one early in my career. That was to do, well, I went down too low in weight. I tried to get down to like welterweight, and it nearly killed me. But anyway, I then readjusted after the loss. Early in my career, I went back up a couple of weights, and I never lost again. And to be fair, there was very few rounds I lost after that as well. That was just a complete kind of readjustment for myself, and sometimes bad things happen for good reasons, and that was definitely one of them things. That taught me that I need to be a lot more smart in terms of what weight I come in at fights and what sort of weight I'm cutting before a fight and stuff like that. So all lessons learned, but you only learn lessons when you experience them, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, because if I remember doing my research correctly, it was sort of like not necessarily injury that caused your retirement, but sort of like just body issue, like health issues that caused you to retire.
Yeah. Well, what it was is you have like and rightly so, you have like a yearly medical
Mm,
with the pro boxing because it's a rough sport and you're getting hit regularly and they make sure everything's right. Now what I had was a change on my brain scan.
mm,
Every year you get like an MRI, you get the full works and everything, and I had a change on my brain scan. Now that doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong. It just
mm.
means something is different from the last
Right.
this one. So I'm very family oriented. I always have been.
Mm,
And my dad was my boxing coach. He was my sole boxing coach, and so that does impact things because although he's my coach, he's also my dad,
mm,
and so I had him on me from a father's perspective. And then at the same time, I was about 3 weeks out when I found out this. I was just about to fight for a title
mm,
in my hometown of Blackpool. And I was about 3 weeks away from my daughter being born, which was my first child
mm,
with my partner Laura. And yeah, I would be lying if I said it didn't affect me sort of mentally. That
mm,
because for the first time in my life, it wasn't about me anymore. I'd been not selfish, but very very kind of driven in
mm.
regard to boxing. I wanted to be a success, and I wanted it was something I had a massive passion for. Um, and then all of a sudden, it's not about you anymore, is it? And so anyway, I went and saw some neurologists and
Mm,
whatnot, and they were all in agreement that I could carry on boxing if I so chose to. However, they're a neurologist; they're not going to tell you that it's a great idea to box. They obviously offered their opinions of risks that could happen long
mm,
term if I decided to carry on. And long story short, I decided at that point in my life that the best thing that I could do, I'd had a great run, everything had gone really well. Um, I'd achieved a lot of goals that I wanted to achieve within pro boxing.
mm,
Not everyone I wanted to achieve. I really wanted to win the British title, but I'd done a lot better than I think a lot of people ever expected I would do.
mm.
And I just decided that was the time to walk away, and sort of like a new chapter in my life, with my daughter being born, and that's what I did.
Yeah, sure. You mentioned that drive, and that's really interesting. So, like, was it a weird feeling having that thought of, after being so driven, after being like, oh, it's all about next fight, prepare for the next fight? Was it weird having to sort of take that step back and be like, okay, you've got to assess sort of like your life as a whole because of it, rather than just your career?
Yeah, 100%, because boxing had all I had known for 10 years. Like
Mm,
I'd literally dedicated my whole life to it, and I loved it, and I don't regret a second of it. It
mm,
was some of the best times in my life. We're traveling on the road with my dad to different towns and fighting people, and it was great. But it also everything comes to an end eventually,
mm,
and that didn't necessarily have to be the end, but I just saw the writing on the wall a little bit, and I just thought maybe this is. I'm not a religious man. I'm not a religious man,
mm,
but I do believe in kind of destiny, and I
mm,
do believe in signs, and I just saw it as a bit of a warning to me that I needed to heed, because if I
mm,
didn't heed it, although they weren't saying there could be a problem, I just had a feeling. I just had a feeling that maybe it was best to walk. So yeah, it was a really hard decision, and one that I massively regretted as well,
mm,
because once I left boxing, I realised how much how much it meant to me, and how much I kind of valued myself on that person being
mm,
that person. And I kind of turned into someone completely different, and that was still a great time in my life, because I've just become a father, but
mm,
that's what I've become, just a dad, um, and and I realised that as much as I loved being a dad, to be the best that I could be to my daughter Bo, I needed to be me still. And I felt like I'd lost a huge part of me when I walked away from boxing. So that's ironically how the wrestling came around.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I was going to ask, we'll get into sort of like the ins and outs of the differences between the two disciplines. But yeah, I guess why wrestling is the obvious first question. Like, why not something different? Just generally, why was it wrestling that you were drawn to?
Right. Well, for one, I've been a giant fan of professional wrestling since I've been about 12. You know, like, I think the first toys I ever had was the Ultimate Warrior and the Hulk Hogan. The arms don't move; they just do this.
Yeah.
They were the original toys I ever got, and I've always been a bit of a comic book geek as well. So I like Spider-Man and Superman and stuff, and I think that really was highlighted to me in professional wrestling, because at the time, especially in like the late 80s, early 90s, it was very superhero inspired. It was all colourful get-ups and larger than life characters, and you had your villains, and it was very clear. And it was like live comic book action to me every week to watch. So I was just a big fan of pro wrestling, as well as the boxing, because obviously from my dad's side and my granddad's side, they were huge boxing fans. And they never really got my love for pro wrestling, but like I say, as time went on, I kind of incorporated that into my boxing. So there wasn't really options to become a pro wrestler when I was a little kid in Blackpool. Like there was options to become a boxer, because there was boxing clubs, but there was no wrestling clubs and whatnot. So I went down the boxing route, but I always had this sort of fascination with pro wrestling. I used to watch it, right through the Attitude Era. Stone Cold Steve Austin was like my hero, and I grew up watching them stories and The Rock come in and all these massive superstars now. And when I started boxing, I kind of tried to incorporate a little bit of my love for that in by like I'd always come to the to the boxing ring to a wrestler's entrance theme.
Right.
That was like my nod to it, and that was mostly for me. But it was also, if I'm being honest, as a bit of a rib on my pals who were big wrestling fans as well, and I knew that they would pop when do you smell what the Rock is cooking, or Motorhead in a really busy nightclub, and then there's only used to dance music, and all of a sudden King of Kings hits. It's never been done before in that. It's certainly in them nightclubs. So it was good times. It was good times, and the way the wrestling came about is obviously I made it quite apparent I was a big wrestling fan, like through my boxing, my boxing career, and then when I retired, I'd had a friend for many years called Johnny Brannigan. And Johnny Brannigan, unbeknownst to me, owned a wrestling company called Grand Pro Wrestling, based out of Wigan, around a long time now. And he messaged me out of the blue about a year after I retired, and said, hi Ryan, how are things? I know you're a big wrestling fan, because obviously he'd seen a lot of my posts and he'd saw my entrances and stuff. And he said, would you be ever interested in doing a little bit? And I've told this story a few times, but I remember like laughing when he said it. And I said, Johnny, I'm 5'11", mate, and 12 stone. I said, well, what are you going to do with me? And he said, you've been a legitimate fighter. He said, and a championship winning fighter. He said, there's a lot I can do with you. There's a lot I can do with you. It's just whether you'd want to commit to it. So this is going back to the earlier story. I lost a massive part of myself when I walked away from boxing, and in that year, although I was unbelievably happy to have this little girl who's changed my life, I'd become completely devoted to her, and she was everything, and she will always be everything to me. But I'd kind of forgot about myself a little bit, and I'd stopped training because what was the point? There was I wasn't training to fight anybody. I was very comfortable at home. I was maybe drinking a little bit too much at home at night. I was eating far too much, and I put weight on, and everything that I knew of myself had changed. And so when Johnny rang me about this offer, he it was definitely the sign. I saw it again, as I said to you before, as a bit of a sign. Maybe this is something that was, meant to be, and this will get me out of my ruts of sat around on the couch with TV or whatever, and get myself training again. And so, yeah, I said yes to it, and I've thrown myself in head first, and I've never looked back. To be honest, that was it. I felt. I was already a massive wrestling fan. I became a bigger wrestling fan when I decided to do it.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It's good to have that thing that sort of you can identify yourself with. Absolutely. And when you first started training wrestling wise, were you was there any surprise? Was there like a shock in terms of like the difference from having trained as a boxer for so long to going to this, I imagine, slightly different way of training to be a wrestler?
Without a doubt. I mean, the first one was how much it hurt. That took me by surprise. But no, I mean, I'm not going to. They're very hard to compare. Very, very. Boxing is a brutal sport, and it was hard years for me to become be a boxer, and the dedication and the fitness levels I needed to be at to compete were massive. But in terms of injuries, I was quite lucky. I mean, the worst I got a couple of broken noses, bruised knuckles. I got a bit of a cut inside my mouth once. But in terms of injuries, I was pretty lucky. I never had anything severe. Whereas with wrestling, touch wood, I've not been severely injured, but now, like, my hips hurt, my legs hurt, my knees hurt. I'm feeling every day of the age I am now. So yeah, no, like, nothing but respect. I said that before. Nothing but respect for pro wrestlers, because this is a hard business, a really hard business. And even as a boxer, I'm not standing there and saying, it's easy, because it isn't easy. It's really really hard, really hard.
Yeah, I was going to say something that I'd like to pick up on is as someone who's done sort of both disciplines, as someone who's worked as a boxer and a wrestler. I think for most wrestlers and wrestling fans as well, the big pet peeve is when people are like, "Oh, wrestling's fake." So, as someone, although it is scripted, most wrestlers and fans will be like, "It's not fake; it's just scripted," and there is a difference. So, as someone who has done both, what would you say to someone who would say to you, say wrestling is fake?
I'd say try it. Now, I can see it from both sides. I can see it from now. Now I've done it. I can see how annoying that comment is. That I can see that. But at the same time, it isn't a combat sport like MMA or boxing. Like you say, we have a predetermined outcome. We know where this is going. But that's where it stops. That's where, like, the sort of the word fakeness. That's where it stops, because everything we do to get to that point is not fake. And what I mean by that, of course, strikes and things like that, we try and do them as safely as we possibly can. But accidents happen there as well, and sometimes you get caught, and that's the way it is. But in terms of the moves, you're taking them moves, and you're not hitting a bouncy castle there. That's wooden boards, and and it's so easy to just jolt yourself wrong or whatever. So yeah, no, there's not, in terms of the actual action that you are delivering, there's nothing fake about it. It hurts, and it hurts a lot. And anyone who thinks it's fake, by all means, give it a try for a week, and let's see how you're walking by the end of it. But yes, it's predetermined, and there's of course an entertainment to it. There is a show mentality, and there is a story to kind of get to. But nothing about the actual actions that we do, I see as fake. Certainly.
Yeah,
certainly.
absolutely. And you mentioned as well.
Body will now agree with me on that.
I'm sure it will. Sure it will. And you mentioned also the sort of the entertainment aspect of it. As someone, obviously, because I imagine when you started training, in terms of physical conditioning, although you say you hadn't trained for a while, in terms of that ability to train, and you probably got from boxing. But what about the entertainment side? What about the showman side? Because boxers as well have to be showmen in a way. They have to big up the crowd and get them on side. So was there anything that you could take from your boxing career in terms of the showman aspect of being a wrestler into that?
Definitely. I mean, don't get me wrong. In terms of sort of like promo work and stuff like that, that is relatively new well, that is new to me, because obviously I've had to take classes on that, which I've actively kind of sought out to try and be better at that side of the game. But I am used to public speaking, and I was interviewed as a boxer. I was interviewed live as a boxer and on sort of TV and stuff like that, and so I'm used to talking to people, but obviously to do that within a character as well, it is sort of the more acting aspect of this job. And obviously I'm going to kind of strive to get as good as that as I possibly can be, because again, going back to being a fan, and my favorite wrestlers were like Austin and Rock, and these were great characters and brilliant and believable in what they did, and that's what I'm sort of aiming to be. I'm not a character. I am myself, just turned up to 10. That's sort of the idea of it, but yeah, I want to be as believable as I can be to everybody who comes to watch. I don't want to be someone that people think, oh Jesus, yeah, I can believe that he'll do that, and he can do this. So, but then in terms of what I've learned from boxing and bringing it to wrestling, I do think I've brought a few things into wrestling that's helped me, and like. As a boxer, I don't think a lot of people see this. You are a part-time athlete and you are a part-time salesperson, because unless you're selling tickets as a boxer, it doesn't matter how good you are. You ain't getting on the shows, because if you're not of a value to them promoters, that's what matters. And so I've spent 10 years learning how to sell tickets. For boxing events. And trying to be personable and trying to be someone that young kids can look up to and want to come and watch box and stuff like that. And I would be lying if I said I've not tried to bring elements of that into the way I promote wrestling matches as well now. Because although it's different, the market remains the same. You are selling tickets to paying customers who want to watch an entertaining night. So that's how I've kind of broken it down in my mind. And I sell it that way, and I've been lucky. I was a good ticket seller as a pro boxer, and I've been a very good ticket seller for anyone who's ever used me as a pro wrestler. I've been a good ticket seller for them as well, and any of the companies I've worked with, I'm sure would tell you that.
And you mentioned something there which is interesting about sort of the selling tickets, about in terms of the sort of reward you get from it. Because we've spoken to a couple of wrestlers who, I guess in their cases, it was Roy Johnson and Debbie Cattell, who had careers in powerlifting as well.
Yeah.
And they said that, obviously, I'm just wondering your thoughts as well, in terms of the gratification difference between, say, boxing and wrestling. Because they were saying, in powerlifting, when you lift the most, you're the best because you've lifted the most. But obviously in wrestling, that's different, because you're getting picked for matches, for titles, based on what certain promoters think of you. Is it similar with boxing in terms of, if you win a fight, you're the better fighter? But I imagine there's a different gratification that wrestling brings than boxing did.
100%, because 100%. Obviously, when you win a boxing match, it's because you're the 99% is because you're the better man, and that's a great feeling when you've trained for 2 months, 3 months to fight somebody who is good, and you've kind of overcome that and beat somebody. That's a great feeling. Wrestling is of course different, as we know. We have predetermined results and whatnot. But I don't really go off wins and losses as a pro wrestler. Simply because of what we just said, it doesn't really work like that. I go off crowd reaction, and I go off mostly crowd reaction. If I'm being honest with you, like if I leave that crowd and the cheering and the screaming and the happy, I feel like I've done my job, and whatever job that may entail. And if that's winning, great. And if it's not winning and it's telling a story, also great. It's how you do it. And of course, I want to impress my peers backstage when I get backstage, because there's a wealth of experience backstage, much more experience than me, who by the way do try and help me, every time. I've got to say that. Like every time I go backstage, there's so many people who I respect who try and offer me their sort of their critique and how I could be better and whatnot. And I want to impress them, of course I do, and I want to impress the promoter who's put me on the show, because obviously, just talking like I was saying before, if we impress them, they want you back, and But the way I've always considered it is just like boxing. If you want to impress that promoter, you impress that crowd. You impress that crowd then will tell the promoter that they want you back, and it rolls and rolls that way. And so, yeah, I get a lot of gratification out of wrestling. It's just a little bit different than the boxing. That's all. It's a different sort of gratification.
No, for sure. And something else you mentioned way back at the beginning of the chat that I wanted to get into was in terms of the fact that you said you came to wrestling quite late, obviously. And in doing my research for this, it also seemed like you said before in previous interviews that you came to boxing quite late, just generally as well. I'm not trying to sort of like age you here or make you feel old in any way, but is that an odd feeling in both senses, in boxing and wrestling, going into the gyms, training and getting ready for matches, and being sort of the newer guy, while all these sort of, I guess, younger faces are in there, and they've maybe got 2, 3, 4 years more experience?
100%. I mean, but boxing was slightly different. I didn't start competing until I was 22, but I've been in boxing gyms since I was about 5-year-old.
Right.
It was my hobby since a little child. It never became a career until I became a man, and that's just the way it kind of played for me.
Gotcha.
Now wrestling, 100%. I'm going into gyms. I'm training alongside a lot of young people who are vastly, more experienced and in a lot of ways better than me within this trade. But this is why I try and hold it. Everything I've ever done has led me to this career now, and I believe I've got a really good work ethic. I've always had a good work ethic in boxing, and I certainly do in wrestling. And I strive to be the best man in the room wherever I go, no matter what I do. And at the minute, obviously, that is not the case because there's so much talent around me. But every session, I try and take something away to become a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And I've never had a problem with listening. And even if that's of someone younger than me, I don't see it that way. Just because I'm 34 now, I don't look at a 22-year-old kid and go like, oh, what can he show me? Because he can show me a lot. If he's been doing it for 5 years, he can show me 5 years worth more than I know. So it's not about that. You've got to put your ego, I think, to one side and open your ears. Shut your mouth and open your ears, as my dad used to say. And I've always gone by that. So yeah, I try to keep my mouth shut. I listen as much as I can, and I do everything I can to become, like I say, not the best. The best wrestler in the country. My plan is to become the best version of me, and that's the aim anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's a great attitude to have as well. And in sort of just sort of slowly wrapping things up here, obviously mentioned that this is going to be our last interview of 2021. So looking ahead to the next year, in terms of promotions you'd like to work at or people you'd like to face, what would constitute, say, if we were having this conversation again in a year's time, what would have constituted a good year for you in wrestling? What are your hopes and what do you want to achieve?
Right. Well, I'm in a very privileged position at the minute because I'm finishing the year in a really sort of strong position. I'm working with companies that I've wanted to work with, not just because of the name, not just because of the name, but also the things that I can do within that company. So yes, I can wrestle, which I really like, and yes, I can wrestle in front of big crowds, which obviously matter to me because that's what I do it for. I do it for the crowd, and I do it for sort of to kind of interact with the fans and have fun out there. But also, I purposely choose companies that I feel I can also do a bit more than just wrestle for, and that's sort of kind of community work and charity work and anything I feel I can kind of give back, I kind of link myself to. So obviously, these Grand Pro Wrestling when I started, and Johnny always tries to do little things to kind of help and put things to charity and stuff. That matters to me. That matters. And then the companies I've got involved with now, Odyssey Pro Wrestling, based out of Morecambe. They've done a massive show in Blackpool in my hometown, and we've raised best part of £1,300 for a young boy who lost his life sadly this year. He was a friend of mine, and we've done it and put it to a charity of his choosing. Wrestle Island in Birkenhead, fantastic company, very community based, and again they try and give back to them fans who come. Yes, they're wrestling fans, but they're also their people, and they try and give back to them. TNT again, like that's the place I've always wanted to work, and although I'm going to be able to work with some brilliant talent at TNT, which I'm really excited about. I also know there's going to be opportunities to do other things as well. TNT and the promotional juggernaut that they are. I know there's going to be stuff we can do to help people as well. And I know that sounds double corny and cheesy, but that matters to me now because I'm a family man, and this is a bit of a dream I'm living at the minute. This wrestling thing, and so if I can do anything good with it now, I want to. That's ultimately that's what I'm trying to say. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I work from a few of the little companies. Kingdom of Wrestling, I'm making my debut with them on Saturday. There's others. There's quite a few little companies now that I want to work with. And in terms of companies going forward, I don't know. What I'm saying is I may work at more places. I may not. It would depend on what opportunities come and do I think that's worth taking and whatnot. And I suppose that's a really good position because I'm not desperate for bookings. That's not really what I'm not begging for bookings. I'm happy with what I've got now. So if something comes that was really good and I felt would enhance me and be able to allow me to do some good work, then yes, 100% I'd jump on that. But that would constitute as a good year for me if I can carry on doing that.
Fab. Awesome. Well, we always end our show with a little feature called Anatomy of a Pro Wrestler. And this is just more of a sort of a shoot thing on you. I'm just going to throw some questions at you and you let me know the answers. So the first one is your favorite pre-show meal.
Pre-show meal. Well, I'm a bit. This goes back to boxing. I have, very sadly, I have rice cakes with a little bit of jam on them, which I know sounds awful. I know it sounds awful, and it is awful. It's a lot better food out there, but it's for me. It doesn't bloat me. Obviously, visually, it matters how you look in wrestling, and so it just keeps me full enough. But it takes away a hunger craving.
Yeah.
But it also just keeps me ready to wrestle. I don't want to feel full of food when I'm wrestling.
No.
When I'm getting thrown over giants' heads and stuff like that, the last thing I want to do is be full of food. So yeah, I have a couple of rice cakes with some jam, maybe possibly an energy drink, a sugar-free energy drink to give me a bit of a spike, and then that's it really.
Nice. Well, on the opposite end of that, the next one is your favourite post-show pig out.
Oh God, pizza.
Nice.
Love a beer. Yeah. I imagine the same as Stone Cold Steve Austin, something like that. I love a beer, and pizza washes the beer down lovely for me.
What do you go for pizza-wise? Domino's, Papa John's, something like that, or?
Yeah, I either or. There's a one right next to my house called the Pizza Company that I'm a fan of. Yeah, I should have stocks in the place.
We'll give them a little shout out here. What do you go for? What are your like toppings of choice?
Right. Well, I like pineapple on the pizza.
Oh, you want? Oh, yeah, that is controversial. Yeah.
I know people go mad about it, but pineapple belongs on pizza, and I die on that hill.
No, I don't agree with you on that one. But we'll to each their own, as they say.
Yeah.
The next one is the song that gets me the most hyped.
Song gets me the most hyped. There's a lot of songs. I mean, I've just obviously I've got my own theme music for wrestling that was made for me by a friend of mine, the rapper Shotty Horror.
Okay.
he and his production crew put this music together for me, and I love it. I'm a big fan of it, and very grateful that I got that opportunity to do it. But I've just started doing some tag team work with my good friend Rick Marcus, and we're called Born Ready, and the song we've found is called Born Ready, and for me, I think it's a bit of an anthem. I think it gets me going anyway. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
Nice. And the next one is my favorite band ever. Well, it doesn't have to be band, like singer, music artist.
Oh, big favorite band ever. I do like the Stones. I am a big Rolling Stones fan. I've got such a kind of eclectic mix of bands and singers. You know, I don't have a particular genre that I like. I probably lean more towards rock than anything else, but I can like any music, especially as I'm getting older. I find myself liking all sorts of stuff. I listen to a bit of classical nowadays as well.
Nice. Yeah, I always say like stuff like, you know, especially the heavier stuff, more like metal side of rock. Like I always think that and classical, they're not too far apart in terms of what they are.
They kind of mix a little bit, don't they?
Absolutely, for sure. The next one is the movie that I'd show the locker room.
Oh God, the movie I'd show the locker room. Oh, that's a tough one. I'm a massive film buff, you see, so I love film.
Nice.
There's a film, an old film called On the Waterfront.
Oh yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Marlon Brando, who was the Godfather, but when he was younger, and that is a film that I watched with my dad when I was a kid, and I don't know, it's just stuck with me. It's about an ex-fighter, and he worked to do with the docks in. It's just a brilliant film, and it obviously tells so much sort of a story about a man kind of standing up for his beliefs and stuff like that. So that's probably my favourite film, but I have many favourite films.
A wide range again, like with the music.
I do. You know, as much as I love that, I'm a massive fan of Terminator 2. So there's the
that's the toss up. Yeah, brilliant. The next one is my favourite way to relax.
Favourite way to relax. I just like spending time with my family. To be honest, you know, like I love going out for something to eat with my daughter and missus and my friends, and just having a couple of drinks, and yeah, that's kind of my happy place when I'm with them.
Awesome, amazing. The next one is my first job.
My first job, I worked for Rawcliffe's Intersport, which is I don't know if you remember that, but it was part sports shop, part school uniform shop.
Yeah, I remember. So, yeah.
First job, and strangely, I met some of my best friends to this day there. You know, we had a riot. Yeah, what a group of cretins they let work in that shop. But yeah, it was me being one of them. Yeah, we just caused carnage in there. It was like a youth club, but ran by us.
Brilliant. Yeah. Amazing. The next one's my greatest fear.
Greatest fear. Running out of time.
Sure.
Out of time.
Sure. No.
It's like, yeah. If you'd have asked me when I was younger, I'd have said something daft like sharks or something like that. But as you get older, and again, I keep talking like I'm about 90-year-old. I'm not. I'm only 34. But I think when you have a kid and everything, you just realise that not everything is forever. You know, kind of savor the time while you've got it.
Absolutely, no, perfectly said. Next one, a couple of wrestling ones. So this one's my favorite wrestling match ever.
My favourite wrestling match ever. I mean, you could say something really cool, couldn't you? Like, I don't know, Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle or something, which by the way, I was a massive fan of and whatnot. But for me, my favourite wrestling match I've ever watched was Rock and Austin, WrestleMania 18, which I know is so standard and so basic because all they did really was punch each other. But it was the build to that. That, you know, I'm much more of a story guy, and I always have been. To be fair, in wrestling, than leg locks and and all that sort of stuff. Of course, there's a place for that, and full credit to the guys who can do it because it's very very skilled. But for me, the best matches I've ever seen have been built around the story that took there. And that build towards WrestleMania between when Austin came back, leading right to him coming back to Wrestle Rock for the title, the peak of his powers at the time. Yeah, that for me was my that's the first match I think of when I think of wrestling.
Yeah, for sure. Something you said there, I'm going to go off on a tangent on this before we get to the next one, because something you said there really intrigued me. Because is it similar with boxing in terms of, I know obviously there's not a scripted storyline or something, but I always find, as someone who admittedly is more of a wrestling fan than say a boxing fan, but I always find that the fights where there is like a genuine sort of animosity between the fighters, like you saw in the build up to like McGregor Mayweather. Like those fights are always more enjoyable when you actually feel like there's some sort of bad blood there.
Of course. Boxing is a little bit different, and of course you've got a lot of respect for. Certainly, outwardly, you've got a lot of respect because the wrestlers have got a lot of respect for each other as well. It's just we're told not to. We're told not to make it look that way, but but I mean, there's a lot of boxers who fight, and of course they really respect each other, but they're there to win and progress. But yes, I agree with you. I think the best fights are those that have got a kind of genuine needle, because you really want to see what's going to happen when they fight. Examples of that would be like Marvin Hagler versus Tommy Hearns. Them boys wanted to prove who the best was, and they both believed they were the best. Didn't really like the other one at the time, and they were going for it. Growing up, my probably one of my favourite fights, and just more because again, I think it was like a bit like wrestling. There was a story behind it. It was Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson. That build of this old man going to fight Mike Tyson, and he's going to die in there, and he's going to get battered, and Evander being the guy who he was, too brave for his own good, saying, "Listen, you don't scare me," and all that, and then obviously being able to overcome the odds and beat him. That was incredible to me. So I think the fights like that where the sort of kind of genuine needle always kind of get you going a little bit more, and that's what wrestling I do think tries to kind of encapsulate, because they're building these stories of good versus bad, and sometimes good versus good, but with a real needle of trying to prove who the better man is.
Yeah, for sure. Back to the questions. The next one is the obligatory my dream match.
Dream match, God. There's so many. There's so many people I'd like to wrestle. So many people I'd like to wrestle. I've got one of my dream matches is going to be tomorrow. I'm wrestling Sonna Durson.
All right, nice.
And I'm a big fan of Sonna. I've watched him ever since I got into the business. I think he's phenomenal. And I'm very proud to be able to wrestle with him, because I want to prove that I belong on that sort of level. And that's an opportunity to do so. If I had to say who one person I would love to wrestle, there's so many.
No, it's fair enough. I know I put you on the spot there. I know it's a tough one.
If I had to say, there's been a match I've talked about with him as well. I would like to wrestle Joey Hayes at some point. He's been very good to me, Joey, and we get along. But he gets a massive babyface reaction wherever he goes, and deservedly so. He's phenomenal. Luckily, I've always had a very good babyface reaction, and I just think there's a story to tell there. Yeah. By somebody.
No, for sure, absolutely. We'd love to see that match. That'd be a great match, absolutely. A couple of final ones. The next one is my favourite place in the world.
Las Vegas.
Is it?
It is. And I know that's kind of it. I've got two. I'm a massive fan of Thailand. Been to Thailand times, and I find it a beautiful place. Just a beautiful place, and I think the people are very charming and nice, and they kind of show that you don't necessarily need money to be happy, because they're very, very poor there. But it's just a beautiful, beautiful country and a lovely culture, and somewhere I could definitely spend months and months and months at a time. But then Las Vegas, the reason I'm a fan of Las Vegas is I've been over to Vegas a couple of times with my dad and my family and my friends, but with my dad to go and watch big fights. So I went and watched Floyd Mayweather and Oscar De La Hoya over there.
Nice.
I went Manny Pacquiao versus Marquez over there as well. And obviously, as a boxing fan, it is unbelievable because all the fight fans around the world kind of congregate in this crazy little town, and all that you can do there is drink and gamble, and it's fun. It's definitely fun. Yeah, I've done a lot of things in Las Vegas. I jumped out of a plane in Las Vegas.
Wow.
Done a lot of crazy shit that I probably wouldn't have done unless I was in Las Vegas. So yeah, I'm a fan of Las Vegas.
Amazing. And the final one just then is my dream holiday destination. Let's say not Vegas. Let's say somewhere you haven't been.
Okay. Dream holiday destination. I would like to. I would. Obviously, I'd like to go to Disneyland with my kid. I've never been to any of the Disneylands. I'd like to take my daughter to Florida Disneyland at some point in her life. But one of my dream things I always wanted to do is Route 66.
Nice.
Oh, I know that's numerous destinations. I'm cheating now. I'd like to get a car and drive down Route 66 for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Kind of experience it, you know. I think that'd be dead cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, I'd be up for that. That'd be cool. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you joining me today, taking time out of your day, because I know you must be busy. But yeah, thanks so much for chatting to me. I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
I have. It's been really good.
Brilliant. Brilliant. That means a lot. Yeah, we always end our chats with giving you a little bit of promo time. So if anyone sees you on an event poster or you're on socials, they see you on socials that you're going to be at a show. Why are you going to steal the show? Why are you the guy to come and see?
I think I'm the guy to come and see because I don't think there's anybody like me on the whole scene, and that is the most cliche thing to be said. I know everyone says, "Ah, there's no one like me," but I genuinely don't think there is anybody like me. I've come from a background unlike anybody else on all of the whole British scene, and I just think that I bring something. I think I bring my act is different to everybody else's act.